Hey folks, I am using a new software to see if the streaming stuff works. So if you're on YouTube, do me a favor, and if you could write something in the chat, that would be super helpful so I can see if your messages actually show up in here. Let me see here. Chandler, thank you, Chandler. Okay, awesome. So it shows your message up here at the top. Yeah, I started using this different software, but well, let's see here. JD, you can hear me? Wonderful. Raj, I just want to know what this start can even playoffs. How long? Records too late. So it looks like it's working. Sweet. You guys can hear me. That's double awesome. Welcome Radioheads to a live stream episode of Radio KBE. It's been a while since we've done one of these. The reason why it's been a while is because I wanted to get a couple of games in, and also because my household got decimated by this virus that hit up the kids. Then it hit me up, and it's just I've been completely out of it for 2 weeks, barely doing anything at all. But I feel much better. So I hope everybody is doing well. Appreciate you guys joining me for the live stream. As always, you guys share, like, subscribe, whatever you guys do, retweet it. It's always helpful, and it always helps the channel out. If you're watching this and you want to be able to chat and have your message appear right here in that section, you could just switch to YouTube if you want, or you could just keep watching it on Twitch, or not Twitch, on Twitter. That's totally fine too as well. Not a big deal. So the Lakers lost, and we're 0-5. And Anthony Davis did not play because he has a sore back. And then Russ didn't play the game before that because of a hamstring. But none of that matters because, we're 0-5. And really it's all about wins and losses. And I certainly didn't have us as having 5 straight losses to start the season. But I can see I also didn't expect us to be I really didn't expect us to be as bad of a shooting team as we have been. And that has been probably the biggest story of the entire season so far for me. We'll get into the non-basketball stuff because there's a lot of non-basketball stuff. But I just want to start off by talking about basketball. So, just say hello to everybody in the chat. Chandler, good to see you. Raj, good to see you. JD, good to see you. James, good to see you. Scoob, good to see you. Really appreciate you guys joining the stream just to listen to me blather on about Lakers basketball. Just Neil, what's up? Good to see you. It's good to see everybody. The Lakers can't shoot. They're a terrible shooting team. And I've been looking up the numbers and stuff like that, and their shooting is quite literally what is stopping them from being a effective half-court offense. And that's really what's limiting this team the most. I know a lot of times we're talking about Russ's turnovers and fit and all that. That stuff is all valid. But just from a baseline perspective, their shooting is horrendous. And the guys that are tasked, and if you guys follow, most of you guys follow me, my biggest thing, and I think I've been pretty consistent saying, is I'm not going to blame the coach and I'm not going to blame the players. Guys that should be shooting league average for sure. Maybe I'm a little upset about them not hitting at least league average on their wide open shots. But like, I'm not going to get mad at the players like I did last year. I'm not going to get mad at the coach like I did last year. Like, this roster is very, very clearly assembled with like bare minimum work done. Like, I've been on my own. I usually always try to find positives, see what it is, like try and figure out how this person fits in with the ham schemes. And some of these guys definitely have. Like, Toscano Anderson has fit in really well. I would say Troy Brown Jr. Now that he's played, he looks like he's fit in very well. Pat, to some degree, defensively has fit in pretty well. Lonnie, to some degree, even though he had a bad shooting night tonight, like has fit in very well. Like in the specific roles, especially defensively. Like, a lot of these guys have fit in really well to what Ham wants to get out of them defensively. But man, has the shooting been bad. And what's making it worse is that, and again, I'm not going to blame the player, is that our best players can't shoot very well either. We know Russ can't shoot. Like, we know he can't. Today, I think he had 17 attempts. I didn't even pull up. Let me pull up the box score so we can sort of go over it together. But like, Russ had 17 attempts. I can guarantee you he doesn't want to shoot the ball 17 times. Like, he never wants to shoot the ball that much. But because nobody's making shots, like, he's almost forced to shoot those shots. And that's the part that's really tough for me. Like, I feel bad for the players. I feel bad for the coach. Like, we're asking, the easiest way to describe it is we're asking everybody to adapt and adjust. We're asking LeBron, AD, the coach, Russ, role players, whatever. Like, we're asking them to do all these adjustments to try and make things work. But our front office isn't doing anything to try and make that work. They're doing the very bare minimum. And the basketball on the court is suffering. And the way I know that is just looking at the numbers. Lakers on average, and this data is from Cleaning the Glass. I would show it on the screen, but that's going to be really bright. As you guys see, my screen is really bright. It's going to blind everybody as you're looking at it. But the Lakers as a team are, and I'll pull it up from Cleaning the Glass. The Lakers as a team in offense, right? So their rank as a team offensively in the half court is dead last. Dead last. They are by far the worst offensive half court team in the league. And so much of that is because of what people have been saying. Like, the shot quality is really good, but nobody can make shots. And that's directly affecting their ability to, like, and kudos to the players and to Ham, to, even though like they miss shots, like last season when they would miss long strings of shots, like they would get down on defense. Like they wouldn't try. They'd like start giving up. A lot of the vets would get really pouty, or they'd just be like, whatever. But this team is not like that. Like, this team is constantly trying to fight and fight. I remember seeing somebody tweet the other day that against Denver, I think against the Denver team, like, they weren't playing hard. And I could not disagree more about this team. Like, this team defensively certainly plays hard, but there are just limitations to what these players can do. So many of these guys are veteran minimum guys. You're getting veteran minimum talent. I could argue that you're probably getting a little bit more than veteran minimum talent out of some of these guys, but for the most part, that's what you're going to get. But they're dead last in half court. And then let's take a look at where they're at in transition. Off of live rebounds, the Lakers against the league rank 18th live rebounds. So every single time a team misses a ball or misses a shot, how often do the Lakers go out and how often do they? What's the frequency rate of how often they run out? League average is about 31%, and the Lakers are at about 32%. So they're right in the middle. So they don't really run very much. They actually play about average when it comes to that. But their scoring is also, just about right there. They're about right in the middle of the league in terms of points per possession that they get out of transition. But that half-court offense is brutal. It is absolutely terrible. And that makes up almost let's see here, 76% of their possessions. So that means 76% of your offense is half-court basketball. And you are the worst half-court offense in the NBA. That's very hard to overcome. And if you watch the games, you know what the reason for it is. It's shot making. We just don't have shot making for it. And that's the biggest problem that we've had with this team. And there's just, like some of these stats that like I've been pulling up. So let's talk about today's game. Like no AD, Russ comes off the bench. He gives a shot in the arm. If you're a Russ stan, you can quite easily just go and pull the plus minus box scores for how the starters played and how the bench played. And I'm pretty sure you would have ammo to turn around and tell people that, Russ coming off the bench actually plus minus wise outplayed the starters. Like there are things that you could do. There are things that the data that shows this certain things work, certain things don't work. But like this thing that's been going on, and I mean, we might as well get into it now. Like this thing that's been going on with announcing whether Russ is going to start or not start, it stinks of somebody in the front office trying to do this for some reason. I don't know why. Like I've had some people tell me that, maybe the reason why like they're making, like it's Russ's agent that's telling Woj that Russ is going to come off the bench. Like there's no point in doing that. There's no value in doing that. There's nothing that Russ gains in letting that. It's 2 games in a row that's happened now. And I'm going to talk about it, but I'm going to talk about it in the sense of like, I don't want the people that are the writers that write the messages to get in trouble for it. But there have been writers from training camp that have been telling us this, right? In training camp, they said that the reason why we traded for Pat and the reason why we signed Dennis was so that they would challenge Russ and maybe Russ will lose his starting spot. That didn't happen. And then Russ came off the bench for a preseason game and actually hurt his hamstring. And then I think people thought he was faking it. He seems too prideful of a guy to fake something like that, but that's neither here nor there. And then immediately when that happened, the speculation, people doubled down, even though he didn't lose the training camp battle, people doubled down and said, oh, well, you know what? There's probably a good chance he's not going to be our opening day starter. And then that didn't happen. And then we go up about 4 games in. The 4th game, he doesn't play because he hurts his hamstring. In the 5th game, he comes off the bench. So people are taking victory laps over him coming off the bench, which, again, is weird because you need him to play well, regardless of what role he plays in. So celebrating that, considering that you're not a good team if you send – and that was the other thing. Like people are saying, oh, well, if you send him home, it's addition by subtraction, which – I don't know how to say this nicely. That's not how basketball works. That's never been how basketball works. If you watch this Lakers team, there is no addition by subtraction with this Lakers team. Addition by subtraction only works when you have one guy who's playing extremely well and another guy who's taking touches away from that player. But Russ isn't taking touches away from anybody else because we don't have anybody else that can do what he's doing, which is attacking the rim, setting up plays, beating his man one-on-one to the rim for a layup. Like, we don't have guys that can do that. The guys that we have that can do it, they need screens or they're not playmakers, natural playmakers. If you've enjoyed the Kendrick Nunn experience, like you understand that. And that was one of the things that I think is working to the favor of like our front office. Like it's now 5 games into the season where people are like, oh yeah, well, maybe our front office didn't really construct a very good roster. I mean, I've been telling people since the trade deadline last season that this team is not like whoever is organizing this team doesn't make any sense. They're not doing a very good job constructing this roster. The philosophy. So when we hired Darvin Ham, I was like, okay, we got a guy who wants to assemble this way. But then if Darvin Ham is giving a philosophy to the front office of the kind of guys that he wants to play the role, but then the front office, because they can't construct good deals or they don't have good relationships all around the league, or they're overvaluing or undervaluing their assets, whatever it may be, or because they're fixated on one specific player that they want to trade for, maybe if it's like a Kyrie Irving type or something like that, or a star, like you're hurting the coach and you're hurting the players. And that's the part that's like very, very difficult for me to like. That's why I can't blame them. I can't blame the coach. I can't blame the players for it, because I think it's very clear that the players understand Russ, not Russ, LeBron, like they're being professionals. Every single one of them is being professionals when it comes to this, and they're trying to make the best of the situation. But it's incredibly difficult for them to do that when you have a front office that's just basically pushing out the message to everybody else, to the fan base especially, saying, well, he's got to adjust. He's got to do this. He's got to do that. He's got to do this. He's got to shoot better. Like at some point, like the front office has to take a look in the mirror and be like, maybe you did a bad job organizing this team and constructing this roster. Or maybe you there's an issue with how you're evaluating the basketball on the floor. Because at this point, we've done everything. Russ hasn't played, and everybody was excited that the Lakers would win the game. The Lakers lost. And so they're like, oh, okay, well, whatever. It's just $47 million. That's why we can't have a better roster. Okay, that's fine. But then you bring Russ off the bench, which he's agreeing to do, which he does, and then you lose anyways. Close game. It's not like you're getting blown out or something like that. You lose a close game. But if you watch the games, if you watch the Clippers game, if you watch the Portland game, probably the only thing you have to do is not have Russ on the floor when you close those games out, and you probably win those games. Doesn't guarantee you win it, but you might win those games. So it's like these extreme reactions, like the extreme swings that we're taking is one thing, but then it being broadcasted out is crazy. I watch Lakers basketball for over 25 years. I've never seen in my life any time where one player coming off the bench, however much money he makes and all that sort of stuff, I've never seen it be something so much of a story that it needs to be announced hours and hours beforehand. And then not only that, like it's also like it's conditional. So it's like when Austin Reeves was starting, and then Russ ended up being out because of his hamstring anyways, like it was announced that Austin Reeves starting, and then it may be something that they do permanently moving forward, almost as if it's an audition. Actually, the words that I think Shams used when he described it was that it's an audition for him in the starting role. That starting lineup got obliterated. Like it was slightly better offensively, but significantly worse defensively. And that's not Austin's fault. That's somebody who's trying to do something new. It was significantly worse than the starting lineup with Russ in it. And I'd have to go and look and see what our lineups look like tonight when it comes to the starting lineup that ran tonight. I mean, obviously, it's not going to be that good. We had Damian Jones instead of Anthony Davis. So you can't really – it's very hard to be fair about that. But, again, like Russ came off the bench today. Let's see how many possessions that lineup got. So the starting lineup of Patrick Beverley, Austin Reeves, Troy Brown, LeBron James, Damian Jones, 20 possessions, minus 9.7. The offense was 85.0 offensive rating, which was worse than the one that we had with Reeves in the starting lineup. That's fine. It's 0.7 better than the one that we had with Russ. But the defense was better, right? So we had Damian Jones, and Troy Brown is also a pretty decent defender. So the defense was significantly better. So the 3-guard thing doesn't work. Makes more sense to have a forward out there, have a bigger guy, 6'7" guy like Troy Brown, as opposed to downsizing to a 6'4", 6'5" guy in Austin Reeves. Especially Troy Brown and Austin Reeves are basically shooting the same. So like there's some basketball stuff that we can learn from like this whole situation. But like again, the idea that one single person is central to the issues of everything that's going on, that it's from a basketball perspective, that's just not true, because you could send him away. And addition by subtraction just doesn't work. So we don't need to harp on that anymore. It is what it is. I I think that the one thing that was nice is the Lakers half court offense suffered today against a team that had 2 7-footers in their half court offense. But as soon as Russ the younger guys and a more of a speedier lineup was out there, you could see the flow get a little bit better. And I think Ham tried to interject LeBron into that as much as he could. There was a long stretch from, I would say, like maybe the last quarter of the third quarter all the way up until the end of the game where I thought like LeBron and Russ looked exhausted. Like I think there was a point where they had maybe played like 9 minutes straight without any breaks, no timeouts, maybe fouls. That was about it. And so I honestly thought like I thought that they were going to lose the game in the fourth quarter because I thought they were just going to run out of gas because it's exhausting. And you saw them miss easy layups. You saw Russ have a couple turnovers, Braun get held up and stuff like that by Jalen McDaniels. Like that kind of stuff is going to happen when you're exhausted, when you're just talent deficit because Anthony Davis isn't there. So, from a basketball perspective wise, like, a couple of these games, they've been right in it. The Clippers game, they were right in it. The Portland game, they were right in it. I would say this Minnesota game was a 1 or 2 possession game. Every now and then they'd extend it to like 8 to 10 points, but it was almost always a 1 to 2 possession game the entire time. This team could be significantly worse if they didn't play defense. Like they would look extremely terrible if they didn't play defense. But the defense is holding up. So it's really just shot making. Like, can we make shots when we need to? Like, it can't be like when the game's already over. It has to be within the course of the game, especially if we could start the games off making a couple of shots. And like I said, like Lonnie had a tough day today. Like I want to say he had maybe 2 outright air balls, and then he had a couple that just went like right off the front of the. I don't know if like his ankle or his knee or something like that when he kind of got turned up on a little bit. That maybe that was the reason why that happened, but. And maybe he was just like compensating with his upper body, but it was really tough to see what happened. But as far as the record goes, nobody wants to be 0-5, but like they're not an ugly 0-5. You know what I mean? Like I'm not saying that that's a positive that you should take from it, but like last season there were times where we would lose games and like it really looked bad. Like you could tell offense and defense, they just weren't there. But this team doesn't seem like that. This team looks like it actually competes all the way until the end, as long as they're not getting blown out. And even then, sometimes when they look like they're about to get blown out, they sort of fight back and stuff like that. We saw that with like the Clippers game. You saw that to some degree with the Portland game too as well. So it's like, it's like a football thing. There's always a team in football that has like a significantly losing record when games are decided by like a field goal or less. Like it feels like this is how these losses are piling up for the Lakers. And I think that's sort of the perspective that some of the players are taking. Like they're not as down as probably the fans are when they probably should be. But at the same time, like I think that is the reality of the situation. Like they are getting good defensive, like they should have been absolutely overwhelmed on the interior today. And they fought. Wenyen fought. Troy Brown fought. LeBron fought. Russ was mixing it up, helping and stuff like that. Like all these, Lonnie was, like, tons of guys were helping out. And that's something that didn't happen last season. So I think Darvin Ham does have them bought in to some degree. They just need somebody to make shots for them. And I don't know how we're going to get to that point. I don't think we can wait 20 games for that to happen. This thing with AD's health is, another concern too that I have. So let me mix in some questions here so we can kind of, we're not just listening to me talk. I can answer some of your questions. Like, okay, so Raj, you had a question here. Let me move this up here. So you had a question here. Honestly wanted to ask, with this start, can they even make the playoffs or play in? How long or what record is too late? No, I don't think a 5-game losing streak is. I don't think a 5-game losing streak is going to, like them starting off 0-5. I don't think that's going to stop them from making the playoffs. Usually, teams that start off 0-5 they look like worse. Like they're getting blown out by like 20 every night. Like they're trying to lose games. or something happened, like a bunch of injuries happened beforehand, and they end up losing games. That's not the Lakers situation. They're losing close games, like ones that they would probably win, but they're just losing them right now. Let's see here. James, aside from Russ's misses at the rim, what do you think about LeBron's misses near the rim? Something. Shoot, man, that's a good question. I hope there's not too many LeBron stands here, but I think that's his age showing up. I think like there was a possession against Denver where LeBron beat his guy with a right-handed dribble on the right side wing baseline, and he took a left-handed layup, pretty much uncontested. Like it was uncontested layup, and he just missed it. And those are just some plays where I just see, I'd be like, like you don't see LeBron miss those. Like in the grand scheme of things, he's not going to really miss that many layups. But I don't know if it's his age. I don't know if it's like like one thing is for sure, like teams are very, very quick to recognize when the refs aren't calling them for fouls, and they just go for it. They just beat the shit out of them, like on the way to the rim. Like last season, I thought LeBron was getting, unfairly officiated to some degree for the amount of driving he was doing, but we were okay with it because he was shooting like a really good clip from three. But this season he's not. This season he's shooting 25% from three. So now it's like making it more obvious that he's not getting calls at the rim, and it's frustrating him too as well. So we'll see what happens. Some of it I think is age. Some of it I think is also like just the athleticism has dipped a little bit. So the guys that he's getting put on him are like Jalen McDaniels is a tall guy. Anthony Edwards is very strong. Like he's a very athletic player. And it's the same exact thing that you see happen with Russ. Like they didn't want D'Angelo Russell on Russ because it was a layup every single time. They wanted McDaniels on him. They wanted Anthony Edwards on him. They didn't want to put Jalen Noel on him because, again, it was a layup. He was going to get to the rim. And teams are very, very good at recognizing that. They're very – rewatch the Portland game and see who was guarding Russ for a majority of that game. It wasn't Anthony Simons. It wasn't Damian Lillard. I think Dame may have guarded him for one possession. It was Jeremy Grant. Or it's a 7-foot center because they know that Russ can't shoot. So they're just going to put a heavier, stronger, taller body on Russ to make make it as miserable as possible for him, or as difficult as possible for him to get layups. So, and he's struggling to figure out, when to choose his spots and when not to choose his spots. But what's exacerbating the situation is the Lakers can't shoot. He doesn't have anybody else to pass it out to other than Braun when they're on the floor together. And if nobody can shoot shots, then that's kind of what's going to happen. Chandler, thoughts on Wenyen? He's been good, man. Like I don't know why he doesn't get more minutes like regularly. He is a natural fit. He should always be on the floor when Russ is on the floor. Always. I don't see any reason why. He runs the floor super hard, makes himself available in the half court when teams load up on Braun or teams load up on Russ in the post. Like he's very smart, creates extra opportunities. Maybe a little bit of a foul magnet, like against the pick and roll and stuff like that. But like, what's to lose? Like, I don't see any issue in playing him if he's giving you good quality. Today was another great example of him giving really good quality minutes, especially if you're able to corral like the live ball handlers and stuff like that. Like D'Angelo Russell doesn't go to the rim; he doesn't like to. Anthony Edwards is selective. Sometimes he likes to take jumpers. He doesn't necessarily like to go to the rim every time. So you can play Wenyen in those situations because he's not going to have to use his body because he's a slim guy. Won't have to use his body to protect the rim as much. Makes it easier to play somebody like him. I thought he's been good. His energy's been really good. Him, JTA, Reeves, Troy Brown, all four of those guys, like their energy's been fantastic. Scoob, what do we have? Feel like there will not be a Russ trade and he walks. I think they're going to. We'll use what common sense says, and then we'll use what I think the front office is doing. Common sense says that it makes smart asset management is to trade Russ for smaller contracts. That's something you guys have been following. I've been saying it forever. Like they should break it up into smaller contracts because if you want to make a deal later, like next season or in the off season, you need to have salaries on the books to make that deal happen. Deals that are like the size of Pat Beverly and stuff like that. The other thing is that if you do the cap space route that they're suggesting, that it's been rumored where they're gonna have only LeBron and AD on the roster, and then the max cap space they can open is like 32 million. That doesn't work because any guys you sign in free agency, you won't be able to trade until December of the following season, right? So next season will start in October. You sign your free agents, and then you won't be able to trade them until December. That's the situation we have right now with like Lonnie Walker, right? We can't trade Lonnie. Nobody that we signed in free agency this offseason, we can't trade them until December 15th. That's the restriction that you have. But you can trade Russ. You can trade Pat because we got him via trade. We didn't sign him. You can trade Nunn because he was on the roster. Reeves, if you wanted to. Wenyen, if you wanted to. They're all on the roster. Like that cap space strategy doesn't work because the max money you can use, your spending power, is $32 million plus the non-taxpayer MLE, which would be like $11 million. So, and then the biannual exception, which hard caps you if you use it, or the entire, it doesn't matter. You'll hard cap yourself. Lakers are going to hard cap themselves. They don't give a shit because they don't want to spend money. So like they'll hard cap themselves. So, like that's it. But the better option is to use the money that you have now because it's expiring for smaller contracts so that you can build out your roster now and have some continuity going into the next season. That would be the smart thing to do. I think what this front office is doing is I don't think they know what they're doing. No, let me not say that. I don't think they know how to look ahead. I think that's what this front office is doing. I think they don't know how to look ahead. And I think this front office is having second thoughts about the effectiveness of the two stars on this team. And I think that Anthony Davis not being able to stay healthy through 5 games, he's already missed a game now. I think that is something that has consistently been on their mind. Like if you listen to Jeannie and stuff like that, like she said, when Lakers Twitter went crazy over it, they said, well, Russ was our best player. And then she rephrased it to say he was our most consistent player, that he was healthy and he played the entire time. I don't think she's lying when she's saying that. I think she's being very honest when she's saying that. I think this front office is evaluating AD not from a basketball skill perspective. I think they're evaluating the effectiveness of this duo based on their availability. And I think because of that, they haven't made a trade. Because I don't think they fully trust LeBron and AD to be healthy. So they would rather make Russ come off the bench, Russ be the bad guy, Russ be the villain, whatever it takes to see if they can buy themselves enough time to make a decision. And I think that's really tough. And I think the people that suffer the most is the fan base. Nobody else suffers. It's just us. And the players, really, it is what suffers. So it's like, I don't think, people have been, like, when LeBron posts stuff on IG and Dave McMenamin, like, retweets it to give it more, like, visibility, as if LeBron needs more visibility. Like, I don't think that means anything to the front office. Not that it falls on deaf ears. I don't think they care. Like, they don't care about the IG post. Not because they don't care about LeBron, but because they're looking at it from the entire picture. Can AD finish a season? If I trade 2 firsts for Miles Turner and Buddy Hield, is AD even going to play? Or am I just going to have LeBron, Buddy Hield, and Miles Turner? And will that even be good enough to get me into the playoffs or will they stay healthy enough, or like what will happen with the team stuff like that. And I think that's the part that they're doing. So it's like I think there should be a Russ trade coming. That would be the smart thing to do. That's what I've been a big advocate for. I think Russ wants to be traded. I think Russ has made it very clear that not that he hates LA, but he doesn't want to be in LA. Like, I think that last live stream I talked about it. I think him and LeBron are like the adults in the room right now. Like, they both know, like, it doesn't work. They don't work together, because they both require touches to get into a rhythm. LeBron can space. LeBron can complement Russ, but Russ can't complement LeBron. And the only way Russ can complement LeBron is when the Lakers are a high-paced transition team, and they're not. They're a half-court team. They don't break out as much as they probably should, and I think that's what causes the issues for them. So I don't think they're going to keep Russ the entire season. That would be very, very tough to do. But I don't think they'll trade 2 picks either. That's something that, I remember when Kobe got hurt. I remember when he tore his Achilles. I remember when they gave him $50 million. And I remember when a lot of people in this fan base said that was a terrible move. And I remember when Jeanie went out there and said, he's brought 5 championships to this team. I've brought 5 championships, or, he's being rewarded for what he's done in his 20 years because he's probably been underpaid. And I remember the Lakers just saying, we're good with it. And they were not good for those 2 years. Like they were like, we'll suck. It's fine. But we're going to do by them. So I'm not saying that's what they're doing with LeBron, but I don't think they feel the way we feel as fans, because they've shown that they can live through a bad season. If that makes, like, it doesn't matter to them if they're a lottery team and that, like New Orleans is better than us and they swap. It doesn't mean, because they won a championship. So it's like that stuff will never matter to them. They don't measure it any other way. So let me see here. Let's see, James. I think it's a whack-a-mole right now. Issues come out, get fixed. Yeah. I think that's what it is, and I think the availability of the players is making it difficult. Def, I understand if we don't make a move at this point. I have as a fan that we're in a position people want. Yeah, they won't. Like that. That's all I like. That's all I can tell you. Like they won't. One of the reasons why I always share like salary cap stuff is not to make myself look good. Like, I don't want the retweets. I don't want the likes. I literally share it to show people these are things that they can do. Like, these are directions that they can go in. Eric Pincus, who writes for Bleacher Report, a lot of his ideas are really great ideas, and he presents them in a very thoughtful manner. And he's, well sourced and stuff like that too. So he's not giving you just like throwing stuff out there. Like, there's probably been some conversation about it. Like, for weeks, I told you guys about that Utah-New York deal that the Lakers were trying to be a third team to facilitate. That was right there. But the Knicks didn't want to give up the extra first rounder or whatever it was to Utah, so he ended up going to Cleveland. The news about Terry Rozier is not new news. We've known about that because Charlotte was trying to go for Donovan Mitchell. So Mitch Kupchak called the Lakers and said, hey, can you guys help facilitate this? Lakers said, sure. And Terry Rozier was supposed to come to the Lakers. Maybe how Gordon Hayward was too as well. The Spurs deal is not new news. You know about Josh Richardson and McDermott and stuff like that. But the reason why I post all that stuff is to show you guys that, like, when you're being told that this stuff is not possible, or you can't obtain this guy, or like Russ is the only guy that can get you XYZ, that's not true. If you're looking at this stuff on the back, like, and that's the reason why I share that kind of stuff with everybody. So it's like people understand that it's not just one way. There's another way to go about doing it. But does the front office want to go about doing it that way? Like, if you think about it right now, the Lakers' biggest need is shooting. You could trade Pat and Nunn right now, Patrick Beverley and Kendrick Nunn right now. Okay? Lakers have 15 roster spots. You could trade those two guys right now for Buddy Hield, salary-wise. Maybe you have to send a first-rounder. Would you do it? Right now. Maybe move Lonnie Walker to the bench. You could do you could start Russ and Buddy Hield. So now you have a dedicated shooter that's next to Russ. Say you want to keep Russ coming off the bench. You could do Lonnie and Buddy Hield together if you wanted to, or you can move Austin into the starting point guard role and do Austin and Buddy together. Would you do it? Has Pat shown enough value as a shooter, as an offensive guy, that warrants him being on the floor or being the starting point guard? Is he enough of an offensive threat or making enough shots to warrant it? Is Lonnie? Sorry, not is Lonnie. Is Kendrick Nunn? If the Pacers came to you and said, yeah, you know what, we just want to get out of his deal, we'll do that trade. You send us those 2 seconds you got in the trade for Russ. Would you consider it? Buys you probably a lot more time. You're not in a rush to trade Russ now, especially if he's willing to come off the bench. Now you have a real half-court shooter that can play next to LeBron. So, like, that's the point that I'm trying to bring up, that, like, everything is being presented in one way. It's all being discussed in one way, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. And whatever the front office is telling you is, like, it's definitely not that way either. So let's see. Continuing on. They need to really consider trading AD. I've said it. I've said it before the season started. This is a make or break year. Knock on wood, and no pun intended. Like, this is a make or break year for AD. Not from a basketball skill perspective. Can you stay healthy? He has sat out preseason games because of his back, and now he's sitting out a regular season game. Not saying that there's anything wrong with that. It can be precautionary. I think Darvin Ham is trying to do it in a precautionary manner, but can he stay healthy? Can we rely on him? You know, when he's not playing, they did a stellar job, I think, defensively today, even without AD. And we would have been obliterated last season if AD had gone down defensively. But can he? Like that, he's too key of a part for us to do it. And I think any move that they make is going to his availability is going to be a big part of that decision. What is care pressure? Why doesn't care or apply pressure anymore to front office? Why doesn't? Oh, you were saying why doesn't LeBron apply? Because he can't. You know, I think this front office has shown that they won't be afraid to engage in, like, the media wars. And last season at the trade deadline, we saw what that was like. It was very clear that the folks at Clutch wanted the Lakers to trade a first rounder to get John Wall. And a lot of people were like, oh, yeah, we should do that trade. And I'm sure people in hindsight are probably also like, oh, yeah, we should have done that trade. But the reality is that John Wall would have never opted out of his $47 million. We would have a $47 million John Wall on our roster right now, not a $6 million John Wall. And the Lakers didn't want to do that. Lakers didn't want to give up a first rounder to swap a $47 million player. And when that stuff happened at the trade deadline, I think the Lakers made it very clear with the competing Dave McMenamin writes something, and somebody at Bleacher Report writes something, and somebody at ESPN, and then a different ESPN writer. Like, you could tell that those stories were coming out like that, and that eventually that ended at the end of the week. I think it was like a week-long thing. And then on Friday, it turned out to be LeBron, Rich Paul, Rob Pelinka, and Jeannie Buss all sat down and had a powwow, like about just everything that's gone on and stuff like it. So I don't – it's not like LeBron can't put pressure. I don't think they care. That's the point. Like, I don't think – and remember, LeBron signed the extension, right? Like, so if he really wanted to put pressure, he could have just not extended. But he extended, and as a result of that extension, he can't be traded this year either because that's the nature of the extension. So, it's that's the way I sort of see it. Like, does he have the ability to put pressure? For sure. Does do his words have some sort of sway? I think they do. But at this point, there's a little bit of like the front office is probably looking at LeBron and saying, we can make this move and trade Russ, but if AD can't stay healthy, it's a risk that we can't take. And they wouldn't be wrong in saying that. That's the thing. Because if they make that trade and AD's not healthy or something happens to LeBron, then it's just a bad thing. But again, that's all beyond. That doesn't matter. Like the construction of the team is just bad. It's not a very smartly constructed team. It's better than it was last season because we have athletic guys, not old guys. But the problem is that, part of it is also we signed like 4 clutch guys. We got LeBron, AD, Lonnie, Troy Brown, Juan Toscano-Anderson, Kendrick Nunn. You have 6 guys on your roster. All 6 of those guys are in the rotation, core rotation. So 6 of the probably 10 guys you'd have in the rotation, they're all getting real minutes. Like, I'm sure LeBron's aware of that too, that all these guys are signed to his agency. He's never going to say something bad about somebody that's part of his team in that regards. So that's why some of that stuff is a little it's more loaded than I think people realize those situations are. James, if Lakers have more positive contributions from their 2 centers, would the team make more sense? Seems like 80 at the 5, this much was it? Yeah, I don't think it was. One of the things that I've been thinking and why I've been such a big advocate for more shooters is we can't play other centers like Wenyen, and obviously Thomas Bryant is hurt, but we can't play some of our guys, like our good screeners. Like Damian Jones is a good screener. Wenyen's a good screener. But we can't play some of them because the guys that we're running any actions with them, like DHO actions or pin down screens and stuff like that, we can't run any of that action because the guys can't shoot. Not the centers, the shooters that they're screening for can't shoot. And I think if we had shooters, if you had more Matt Ryans on the team, like you could run those actions. So like you can play Damian Jones, and if Yusuf Nurkic is going to stand in the paint the entire time, the Damian Jones is just going to go run a DHO action, get Buddy Hield a wide open 3. So now Portland has to honor that, right? Because Buddy's going to hit 2 or 3 of those because he gets to walk right into them. But when you don't have shooters, then that entire action is gone. Like you can't run that action. And if you've watched like the way the Bucks play, the way they use Brook Lopez, when they use Giannis at center, even Bobby Portis, they like to run that stuff because it gets their guys open. They can run it for mid-range stuff for like Middleton and Drew and all that sort of stuff. But like you can't run it for Pat Beverly. Beverly's not even looking to score or shoot the ball. Austin Reeves, I love everything about Austin, but he doesn't look to score sometimes. He's just looking to facilitate. So you need guys that are real gunners, because if you have gunners on the roster, then other guys now become more available, right? Like everybody wants to use the Warriors example, but a great example of it is also what Miami does. Duncan Robinson can't play a lick of defense, but he can run that DHO action nonstop. And so it doesn't matter what center is running it with him. As long as it's a good screen, he's going to get that shot off and he can make it. So when you can do that, it makes other guys available, right? It makes it possible to use other players who normally would not be able to be used because you can use them for specific actions. So even AD, like guys like Damian Jones, granted his hands have been kind of shaky, but like guys like Damian Jones, Wenyen Gabriel, like they run to the rim hard off of the screen. You can run DHO action with them, but you got to have a shooter, somebody who's actually a shooting threat to make it work. And Lonnie hasn't necessarily cut it. I think we were hoping for Kendrick Nunn to be that guy, but even he's been kind of up and down to some degree. He's been trying to make plays for his teammates, and I have no idea why. I mean, I know why. He doesn't want to keep shooting it. Like I think the game before, that somebody messaged me. I think he attempted like 4 shots in a row that he bricked all of them, or he made one of them, and people were like, "What the hell is he doing? Why is he shooting?" But like that's an example. Like you don't have real gunners. You have like these combo guys. But yeah, to answer your question, James, like you could get more positive contributions and get more utility out of them, but you have to have guys that can shoot to be able to use their screening to get them free and stuff like that. Tyler, your question was, which trade do you think could help the Lakers more, Charlotte or San Antonio? I like the San Antonio trade. Well, sorry, to help more, if the cost is exactly the same, it's probably Charlotte. But if one is cheaper than the other, like if San Antonio, whichever one's the cheapest is the one that I would like. By cheapest, I mean least amount of draft compensation that we send out. But in terms of fit, it's probably Charlotte because Gordon Hayward can play the 2, 3, or the 4, depending on what the lineups are. And he's actually a natural complement and a natural substitute for a guy like LeBron. So if LeBron ever sat out games, Gordon Hayward could walk right into that. He's a really good mid-range guy. If you guys watched him, I think he played for Butler, if I remember correctly. Like he played like point forward for them, so he can actually play 1, 2, 3, or 4. He plays probably at a similar pace that like LeBron plays, much more methodical pace, not frenetic speed-wise and stuff like that. Terry Rozier can shoot it up and stuff like that. He's a good defender too for his size. So fit-wise, even if we were only getting Rozier and Hayward, I would go for that over the San Antonio one. But I think pick-wise, San Antonio probably costs you the least, and I'm okay with that too as well. Even if it's just McDermott and Josh Richardson and a big $21 million traded player exception. They just need shooters. They like 1 or 2 guys that can just make a league average threes. Just league average. They don't even have to be 40. Like we don't need Buddy Hield tier shooters. We just need guys that can make league average. That is quite literally the difference between the Lakers being 0-5 and the Lakers being like 4-1. Legitimately. You could win the Denver game, the Portland game, the Clippers game, and tonight's Minnesota game if you had league average shooting. And we just haven't. That's literally what it's been. Just Neil, your question. With our current defensive successes, would you be okay with starting a non-defensive shooter if we trade for one? Yeah, I would. I think this defense is good enough where you can have one guy who's not at like they desperately need it. I'm a believer in Ham's defense. Like even tonight, Pat and Lonnie were getting buried on some screens, and it's not easy because Cat and Gobert they deliver very good screens, but they did a pretty good job. They did a really admirable job keeping up with it. I thought the Lakers defense held up pretty well, giving up like the shots that they want to give up. But yeah, I would be okay with it. Not somebody who can straight up not play defense, but like just somebody who play with like a baseline of effort defensively. But yeah, you don't have to have a great defender on there. We're getting good quality defense out of Russ. And we know what the narrative on Russ was. So I'm pretty sure we can get something good out of it. Even Dexter, even with Buddy and Miles trade, that's still not enough shooting. What are realistic deal scenarios that they can actually make for a contender? So I know Buddy and Miles is the one that's like, I mean, I can tell you that guys like that's the one that the Lakers want. Like the Lakers front office wants that trade. Rob wants Buddy because that used to be his client, and the Lakers, the front office, wants Miles Turner because they want to replicate what they did with the Marc Gasol thing, where Marc Gasol was like the floor spacer and stuff like that. Buddy's the actual shooter, right? Miles, they don't run plays for Miles. Miles shooting is a helpful thing, but he posts up, he takes jumpers and stuff like that too. So it is a realistic trade that they can make. It's the cost of the trade. That's the issue for the Lakers. But if that Spurs one is there, that's also very available. And we don't know who's going to alter course or decide that they want to get rid of long-term salaries or they want to get rid of certain players and go into a rebuild. So that'll be different too to figure out. But I think Indiana is realistic. And I think Spurs are probably realistic. I think those two are probably the only two realistic ones that we have. I don't think Charlotte is realistic only because I think Charlotte could do absolutely nothing and wait for Russ to get traded and bought out and then just sign him to the roster. And they don't have to trade anybody at all. And there are teams I think that are going to do stuff like that. Team like Chicago, team like Miami, team like Charlotte, they'll just wait for Russ to get traded and then wait for Russ to get bought out. And as soon as he gets traded and bought out, they'll just go sign him because it's a very, it's like the John Wall thing, very, very minimal risk because of how much it costs to sign him. Would you experiment with Wenyan playing the 4 with AD and Brock? You know what? It's me and Raj. If you guys follow Raj, he does Lakers SPN stuff. He does post games for them. We've discussed this. I think they should because I don't think Braun can play the 4. I think it's very taxing on his body, and I think if you want him running the wings, then you should play a 4 that's good rebounding. Like they kind of did that with Troy Brown today. Like they started him at the 3, but Troy was really the 4 for the Lakers. Like he was guarding Cat majority of the time and crashing the glass and stuff like that. So if they can get away with doing it with like Troy Brown, I would continue doing that. If they're going to move AD to the 4, I would play Wenyan instead of Damian Jones. Just because I don't know if AD's jumper is back and Wenyan kind of knows how to cut and stuff like that in a way that complements AD. Christian, did you see the quotes from Braun and Russ and AD mentally? Yeah. I mean, that's been the theme, right? Like this entire, like that, I'm sure that bothers AD. Like he wants to be healthy and available. Like I said, like these guys are very aware. Like the front. I think AD knows the front office is looking at him like, you can't stay healthy. Why would we do anything to help your teammates out or improve this roster if we know that you can't? Like you're the guy. You're supposed to be the guy, and you can't stay healthy. So I'm sure he's a little bit depressed because he's been injured. That kind of stuff can be very depressing, especially when it happens over and over again. Just Neil, how does it feel? Ready to get a follow back on Twitter? I'll follow you after this. The only reason I don't follow too many people is because Laker fans like to argue, and then my whole timeline's full of people just arguing the whole time, and I already get enough people getting mad at me half the time. So when I tweet, if I tweet something nice about Russ, I get called a Russ stan. I tweeted yesterday something about trading Pat and Nunn and it being enough salary to get Buddy Hield. And then I had people calling me a LeBron stan. So it's just, I just keep it very limited. I'll follow you back, man. The mistake the front office made was expecting the guards to guard up. I mean, you're right, Roger. Not only that, but they also thought that they would have a Russ trade. There are some folks that are ready to trade the 2 first-round picks to Indy. And then there are other folks that don't want to do that. And I think that's kind of what the holdup is. We got that one. Dexter, you had another follow-up. Do you have any thoughts on what the next offseason might look like if we do have cap space? You know what? I have no idea. I wish I could tell you, but I think we have much, much bigger fish to fry if we go the cap space route. I would venture a guess that one of Anthony Davis or LeBron James is not going to be on this Lakers team by next offseason. Because there is no meaningful max tier player, no meaningful role player or collection of role players that you are going to be able to sign that will make that much of a difference. And I think if the Lakers go the entire season with Russ on the roster, just so they can have cap space, I don't think that's going to be. I think they're going to make much bigger changes than people realize. You got that question, Alex. You had a question. How are you feeling at 0-5? Something that makes me feel a lot better is how close you've been. Yeah, that's literally what I mentioned a little bit earlier, Alex. You and I are in the same boat. I thought last season we were losing games, and I was really mad when we lost certain games. But this season, like you can see it, like we're right there. We're just not hitting shots. That's really what it is. So I'm not as mad. I've made my peace with this season to some degree. And again, like Anthony Davis goes down in a game that we lost by 8 points, where we really, really needed the offensive help, defensive help, maybe. And those you can't. It's just too hard to win on those margins. That was what I said last season, and people called me a Russ stan. I said when LeBron and AD are both not playing, and it's just Russ and a bunch of veteran minimum players, like that is like you're asking too much of one person, regardless of how much money he makes, to do something like that. And so we're running into that a little bit, but we're in these games because we have better athletes, better players. So I am not happy that we don't have wins on the board, but we're 3.5 games out of first place. So take from that what you want, or 3.5 or 4 games out of first place. So it's not like we were expected to be the first place team this year. We just need to be like a playoff team. That's the whole goal. If we did the trade with the Spurs and we got Pirtle, wouldn't that make the offense a bit stagnant considering AD is a non-spacer now? That's a good question. But I think the idea is that you're getting enough balanced shooting that allows you to be successful. Remember, we could play Pirtle. We could stagger Pirtle and AD2 at the same time, which is something that we can't really do right now because we don't have any shooting to pair with our centers. But, the conspiracy version of me is also been thinking that the reason why Darvin Ham is playing AD at the 5 is because he knows that AD's jump shot's not back. And that, stuff like the back injuries and stuff like that is sort of sapping his ability to have a consistent jumper. I think he's being protected from himself, because my concern is that if AD moves to the 4 and he's not making his jump shots, the focus is going to change towards AD and less about Russ. And people are going to talk about how his jumper hasn't improved at all, and it's still as bad as it was post-bubble. Let's see what we got here. Any potential shooters in that free agent? Chandler, I haven't really looked to see who would be available. But that's why I'm proposing like the Pat and Nunn thing. Like just trade Pat, trade Nunn, take the risk of lesser defense from not having Pat on the roster. But like you need the shooting badly. Like you really need it badly. If you can get that trade done for Buddy or a collection of shooters, make the trade. I think Pat, you could trade straight up for Doug McDermott right now too if you wanted to. Or you could trade him straight up for who am I thinking of? Josh Richardson. Richardson's not really that much better of a shooter, but like that, like they need the shooting much more than they need the defense right now, because their margin of error is literally being wiped out by their lack of shooting. But yeah, I can't think of any potential shooters just off like the guys that we had last, like the Wayne Ellingtons, Carmelo Anthony's, like those are the guys that you're looking at. But those aren't probably, we don't want to add those guys again because now you got to try and carve out minutes for them. We need to consolidate from the guard area to get more shooting. Let's see what else we got. James, you have another one. How do we know Lakers 3-point shooting? Are they shooting in places they aren't used to? No, but they're taking shots from all the good places, all the places that they should be shooting from. They're just not making them. Could be pressure. Could be, I don't know, voodoo. I really don't know why they're so bad at shooting, because none of these guys that are on the floor, even Pat, like Pat's not even a high volume 3-point shooter, and he's shooting horrendously. Kendrick Nunn, Lonnie, like all these guys are shooting horrendously. Even LeBron. LeBron's shooting 25%. That's the worst percentage that he shot from 3 his entire career. I've never seen that. So it's just weird that it's been like that. And then I got Jacob. Hey, Jacob, I think it's time to trade AD, maybe Ayton Cam for some. I don't know if they're going to trade him. I think they are definitely going to evaluate him, though. I think they're looking at AD to see, can we do this for another season? And so we'll see what happens. We'll see. He's supposed to be playing in this Denver game, which I hope is a win for the Lakers. Again, they could have won that game in Denver, but they let that game get away with them. I think they can win that game. They can win this game at home too. I think their defense is good enough to help them win at home. And then Raj, could them using so much defense? Yeah, it could. Like there was a stretch. What was that one stretch where like they were just running back and forth? It just looks like everybody was drunk. Like, was it the third quarter or fourth quarter? Where like it's like a 2-on-1. LeBron settled for a 3, missed it. Timberwolves go back, and that was after like a Wenyen Gabriel defensive play. Then LeBron took a 3, missed it. Wenyen defended another shot where they missed a layup and they went down. He outlet it to Russ. Russ tried to draw a foul, miss a layup, and they go back and they hit it through. Like they could be getting exhausted from it. But again, like that's why we got to have guys like AD. Like we can't not have our big 3 on the floor, or else it's just too hard to overcome. And these will be my last couple questions. Just Neil, with our conversation about just having okay shooters is the reason why Matt Ryan hasn't gotten much run due to current guard time. I don't know. I don't know why Ryan hasn't gotten much run. I would have thought that they might brush him off. I mean, maybe because they're concerned about his defense. And also, to be fair, like he's like the 15th guy we signed. So when you go with the 15th guy over Lonnie or Kendrick or Reeves or Troy, like that sometimes it rubs guys like that the wrong way. So there's a little bit of politics involved with that too as well, which is probably why they won't do it. It's not a true meritocracy. There is a limit to the amount of meritocracy that you can run. This is not just the Lakers. This happens with everybody. Like, I think if you go look at the Clippers right now, like they don't even play BJ Boston. They don't even play, like I think they just started playing Amir Coffey, but like sometimes they don't even play Amir Coffey. And those are guys that played real minutes for them last season, even with LeBron and stuff like that. Or not LeBron, even with Kawhi being out and stuff. Let's see what else we got here. AD's going to shoot. He needs to be confident. There's a 3 in Denver. He has to. I'm telling you, man, I think he's a little concerned about his jumper. I think he's a little concerned about his ability to make jump shots, and I think his back is probably affecting him a little bit because that stuff can really jack up your shot and just kind of how much you can do, your athleticism and your follow through and stuff like that. So we are at 1 hour and 10 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and conclude tonight's live stream. Folks, I appreciate everybody. I appreciate everybody that joined the live stream. Again, I apologize. I haven't done it for a couple of weeks because I've been sick. My whole house has been sick, but now we're not. But this has been a lot of fun, and it's always a lot of fun. I'm going to get back into the regular routine of doing the podcast, doing the YouTube videos and stuff like that. There has been some cool stuff like DHO stuff and Lonnie's downhill attacking and stuff like that. That's been really nice to see, and just good effort stuff that we've seen out of certain guys. I'm going to cut some tape up on for us to just kind of review video wise. But as always, if you didn't know, if you have Spotify or Apple, you can search Radio KBE. I do these 8-minute bite-sized episodes where I just kind of talk about in constructive manner, post-game recaps and stuff like that. So if you need like a daily fix or a every other day fix of just kind of what it is that something Lakers related that's not people screaming at the front office, you can always tune into that. You can subscribe there. But as always, I appreciate you guys joining the stream, chatting with me, just talking Lakers basketball, not being crazy and stuff like that, and just giving me the time to sort of download my thoughts and just kind of talk to you guys about stuff like that. So I'll see you guys on the timeline, and I'll see you guys in the next video. You guys take it easy.